Before listen, lock your door.
Subscribe for daily horror story.
First story.
My uncle always said, if you get turned around in the Appalachians, don't trust the trail, trust the sun. Because some forests loop themselves, and they want you walking in circles forever. I wish I had remembered that. It all began with a simple backpacking trip. 3 days, solo. I wanted peacetime to clear my head and push my limits. I'd done tougher trails before, but this one felt different. Unmarked route west of the official Appalachian Trail. Pieced together from old ranger notes I found online. They called it Cutter's Hollow. No maintained paths. No recent trip logs. That should have been my first warning. The first day passed uneventfully. I made good progress and set up camp near a dry creek bed. The forest was dense, but beautiful thick pines, moss-covered stones, no signs of recent campers. The silence felt clean. That night, the wind didn't blow. No owls, no frogs, just stillness. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a soft, rhythmic tapping, like a stick tapping against tree bark. It seemed to come from every direction at once. I unzipped the tent and looked out, but there was nothing. Only trees standing, deathly still. I chalked it up to sleep fog and crawled back into my bag. On day 2, things started to unravel. I headed east, following both my compass and the sun. But by early afternoon, I somehow ended up right back at the same creek, same stones, same little pile of sticks I'd stacked. I checked my compass again, it still pointed east. Thinking I had veered off, I corrected my course and hiked north for hours. But by 6 p.m., I was standing in the same exact spot. Even my own boot print was still fresh in the mud. That night, I didn't sleep. The tapping came back, louder this time, closer than I heard whistling. Not a tune, not birdsong, just 2 notes. High, then low, repeating, getting faster. I stayed inside the tent, frozen. At one point, I swear I heard someone walking just beyond the thin nylon heavy footsteps. Breathing slow and shallow, not panting, but sniffing. Then everything went quiet again. Morning brought fog. Not just mist-wide out fog. I couldn't see 10 feet in front of me. Still, I tried to hike out, used GPS until it lost signal, then switched back to compass, but nothing made sense. The trees seemed to repeat like a broken loop. Same fallen log, same broken branch. I started marking trees with my knife, but 10 minutes later, I passed the same marks again. I screamed into the woods. No echo. It was like the forest was swallowing the sound hole. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me, I spun around. Nothing there, but the footprints were real. Bare long, fresh. By late afternoon, panic was setting in. My food was running low. Water almost gone. I set up camp again and tried to stay calm. That night was the worst yet. I heard my own voice calling from the woods. Hey, over here, over and over, getting closer, but I was still inside the tent. I held my breath. Something brushed against the fabric. Then I heard scratching, slow, intentional, like something was writing. When morning came, I checked the tent wall. Faintly scratched into the nylon were the words, "You're walking with me." I ran. Didn't care which direction. I didn't eat, barely drank. Just kept moving until I collapsed. When I opened my eyes, it was night again, and somehow I was back at the same campsite, same rock, Same crushed energy bar wrapper I'd left behind. But now there was something new. A second tent. Same size, same color, just older, torn in one corner, zipper rusted. I didn't unzip it. Couldn't. Instead, I snapped a photo with my phone and turned away. But when I looked at the picture later, there was a face inside the tent, just barely visible through the mesh, eyes wide open, mouth even wider, like it had been screaming for years. Eventually, I stopped trying to escape. I just sat, talked to myself to stay sane, waited. That's when the woods responded. The fog, the silence. Then a voice, deep, wet, like roots tearing. From the soil, you walked too long. Now I remember you. I screamed, begged, and it whispered, next loop, you won't know you're lost. I don't remember how I got out. I woke up beside a service road, clothes shredded, boots missing, phone cracked. The last photo in my gallery was of me standing in the woods, but I don't remember taking it. And behind me, someone else, smiling, wearing my backpack. It's been 3 months now. Whenever I walk near trees, I lose track of time, minutes, stretch, roads, twist. And sometimes, when I check the mirror, I see trees behind me that aren't there. And at night, I hear footsteps circling my bed, getting tighter, closer. Next time you think you're just turned around in the woods, don't trust your trail. The forest knows when it has you, and some pieces of it are already wearing your shape.
First story.
My grandfather once told me, if a cabin in the woods has only one mirror, don't look into it. If it's not reflecting you, it's watching. I never believed him until I spent a night in the Grafton Hills in September of last year. I went on a short solo trip into a lesser-traveled patch of forest in southern Appalachia. It was a last-minute escape to much work, too much noise. A guy at a supply shop in town mentioned an old trail behind Grafton Hill that led to a forgotten cabin from the 1940s. It wasn't on any maps. If the door's open, he said, you've been invited. I thought he was joking. The trail wasn't marked, but I found it faintly carved into the hillside. The midday sun barely broke through the trees. The deeper I went, the quieter everything became. No birds, no insects, just the soft crunch of moss and pine needles beneath my boots. After about 2 hours of hiking, I found it. A small wooden cabin tucked between 2 large boulders. The door stood slightly ajar as if nudged open by the wind inside. The air was thick with dust, hanging like fog in the stillness. The furniture looked untouched. A wooden table, 2 chairs, a Castian stove. Everything was old but clean, preserved. Only one thing seemed out of place. A tall, narrow mirror, hanging crooked on the far wall. It reflected the room perfectly, except me. I stood directly in front of it, but the mirror showed an empty cabin. I stepped back, heart thudding, and then I felt it. Someone was watching me. I told myself it was a trick of the light, maybe grime on the glass. Still, I avoided the mirror. I didn't look at it again. As night fell, a thick fog rolled down the slope outside. No cell service, of course. I ate a protein bar by lantern light, jotted a few lines in my journal, then tried to sleep on the old cot against the wall. Around 2 a.m., I woke up. The lantern had gone out, and the mirror was glowing, not brightly. Just a soft, cold light like moonlight. But the window behind it was boarded shut. I sat up, staring. The mirror was showing the room again, but this time I was in it. Only I was still asleep on the Cat, something moved behind my reflection, a shape, thin, draped in shadow. It leaned toward the cot, toward me. I turned to look behind me in the real room, but nothing was there. When I looked back at the mirror, the cot was empty. The reflection stared straight ahead, as if it was waiting. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave, but something about the air outside felt ... wrong. The trees looked different. The trail I had followed was gone. The forest felt tighter, smaller, like it was closing in. I tried walking straight downhill, keeping the cabin in view behind me. But when I turned around, the cabin was in front of me again. The door was open. The lantern was glowing, but I had just turned it off. I walked backward, staring at the trees. 10 steps, 20, I blinked. The cabin door creaked open wider, as if it was inviting me back inside. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept the lantern on. I kept my eyes away from the mirror. Around 4 a.m., the glow began to fade, but just before it went completely dark, I saw something else. Me walking out of the cabin, carrying my pack, looking up at the trees, smiling. When daylight finally came, a trail appeared, but not the one I had taken. This one was narrower, twisting, like it had been dug by hand. I took it anyway. I didn't stop walking for 6 hours, until I stumbled onto a gravel road. My phone came back to life, 12 voicemails. My sister, my boss, even my landlord, each one confused. They said I had already come home, that I had been seen in town, had spoken to them. I didn't believe it until I returned to my apartment and found my journal on the desk open, with an entry in my handwriting, dated the day after I went into the woods. The last sentence read, "Don't go back. He's still in the mirror." It's been 5 months, and now I don't have reflections anymore. Mirrors, windows, even phone cameras. They don't show me, but sometimes, when I glance away, I catch glimpses. Someone who looks like me, smiling when I'm not, blinking when I haven. Single quote: next time you find shelter in a forgotten place, don't look for yourself in the mirror. Something else might be staring back, and it might want out.
Third story.
My older brother once told me, if you hear whispers near Devil's Rock, don't answer even if they sound like someone you know. They're not calling for help. They're calling for you. I always thought it was just his way of keeping me close to the main trail. I was wrong. I was 24 when I decided to hike my first solo section of the Appalachian Trail. I trained for months, planned every detail, packed extra gear, water, even an emergency beacon. I wasn't reckless, but I was curious. At a small trail stop in western North Carolina, an older hiker mentioned a long-forgotten detour near Devil's Rock overlook a stone shelf that jutted out above the valley. People used to camp there, he said, before the storms washed out the ledge. Some still do, but only the first night. He wouldn't say anything more. Of course, I went. The detour was steep and overgrown, barely visible. But by dusk, I found the spot. A wide, flat ledge just beneath Devil's Rock. The view was breathtaking. Total silence. You couldn't see another soul for miles. It felt perfect. That night, I lay in my tent, listening to the wind moving through the trees below. Around midnight, I heard it call in whispers, faint at first, just enough to make me think the wind had caught a branch wrong. Then it came again, clearer. It was my name, Eli, drawn out, as if someone was trying to gently get my attention. But the sound came from below the ledge, from a place where no one could possibly be standing. I unzipped the tent. No one was there, just trees, and one thing I hadn't noticed before. A small corner stack of smooth stones sat balanced right at the edge of the cliff. It hadn't been there when I set up camp the next morning. I checked my map and prepared to move on, but my trail markers were gone. I hiked for hours in what I believed was north, only to end up right back at the overlook. I tried again, same result, no matter which direction I walked. The forest looped me back. That's when I started noticing the changes. There were more cairns, one under a tree root, one in the middle of the trail. By sundown, there were 7. Each one a little taller than the last. Each one perfectly balanced. And each time I blinked, I could swear they had moved an inch closer to my tent. Night 2 was worse. The whispering came again, only this time it wasn't just calling my name. It was begging, "Eli, please, help me, I'm hurt." It was my brother's voice, exactly his voice. But he was 200 miles away. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. Then I heard the zipper of my tent slide halfway down. Nothing came in, no footsteps, no sound. When I finally worked up the courage to check, the flap was still shut. But outside, in the dirt, were footprints, barefoot, human. They circled my tent twice. On the 3rd day, I stopped pretending I was in control. I shouted into the trees, threw rocks, tore down every cairn I could find. But when I came back from the stream with water, the cairns had been rebuilt. This time, they were arranged in a circle around my tent. Each one had something of mine on top. My compass, a sock, an empty wrapper, my water filter. But all those items had been in my bag, zipped up, untouched. That night, the whispering started before the sun even went down. Multiple voices now, male, female, older, younger, all saying the same thing. "Come down, it's safe now," over and over again. Their voices surrounded the ledge. I didn't sleep. Every time my eyes closed, even for a second, I'd jolt awake to the sound of twigs snapping just outside the tent at 4 a.m. I heard breathing, right at the edge of my head. Slow, wet, not human. I waited for dawn, then packed everything and ran. No direction, just ran. I didn't stop until I hit pavement, a narrow service road. When I turned back, there was nothing, no overlook, no cairns, just trees and silence. I called my brother the moment I had a signal, told him everything. There was a long pause. Then he said, "I never told anyone this, but when I was 15, I camped there too." He heard the whispers, his name, our mother's voice, someone crying. He ran barefoot through the woods in the middle of the night. Didn't stop for 10 miles, until someone found him on a service road. He still has nightmares. Now I do to every once in a while, I wake up to find stones on my windowsill, perfectly balanced, and sometimes, in the middle of the night, I hear a voice whisper, "Eli, come down, it's safe now." But I don't answer, because I know what's waiting if I do, next time. You hear someone calling your name and the woods don't respond. Some voices aren't calling for help. They're calling for a replacement.